Hello, welcome to the next vlog. I think it's number 10. I had a little break from the math talk. I discussed my birds, not my birds, the birds that stay in my house. I discussed a little bit of my history, and I thought I'd go back to math. Last time, I had discussed this interesting probability about spheres, and I still need to make a bit of a hand sketch, basically showing how to construct a hemisphere in which you get 3 points, regardless of where you pick them, that will always be on the same side of the sphere. To talk about a proposition is to just say it's a statement, and that statement is generally saying something. You could say that hello is a statement, but you can't really say anything about that. So if you make a statement that says it's a good day today, now that's subjective. What's the definition of good that you're using? But it is saying that something is something. So it's establishing that you're drawing a reference or a conclusion about a matter. X equals 5. 5 is an odd number. Those statements are making descriptions about something else. So it's some expression that has like a linguistic sort of mechanics. So the sky is blue, the trees are green, the earth is dying, the earth is alive, pollution is the end of the world, pollution's going to save the world. These are all statements. Now, we're not even talking about truth or anything like that. So you're not even talking about the truth just yet. You're just saying statements. But the statement does have to make some sort of claim. Now, let's call that a proposition. Effectively, it's a statement that can have a truth or a false value. In mathematics, you would say that that is boolean, meaning that it follows under boolean logic, which means it can only have a true or a false value. So it's kind of like a function. It says, give me a statement, I'll tell you if it's true or false. So if you think of a function as like a box, a magic box that does something, it takes an input and it outputs an output. And then the output is according to the type that the function makes. So if you had a function that was a boolean and you said 5, then you're not. It could be a function that says that whatever you put in, it's going to give you anything, and you might have a set of rules that say that. But let's say it takes an expression that has a truth or a false value, and then the function will give you what that value is. 5 is odd, that's true. 5 is even, that's false. But you can't get 7. Because 5 is odd, 7. It's like that's not the answer. The function is making a sort of rule that will always be held to. Okay? So proposition is like a function that takes an expression and it gives you a truth or a false value. And then you want to look at comparisons of these truth or false values. So how do you compare things? Well, you could say 5 is odd or 5 is even. That or is a statement it's an operator, so it will take two statements, two propositions, and it will return a corresponding Boolean result. So, for example, you can say 5 is odd or 5 is even. Now, 5 is odd and 5 is even are both propositions. One of them is true and one of them is false. But what is the output? So the function that is an OR statement, it will return a truth or a false value. So this is saying that if you have some sort of, and each of the inputs of the OR statement also are Booleans. So the OR statement of 5 is odd and or 5 is even, you've got a statement 5 is odd. Now that could be true or false, and you have a statement that is 5 is even, which can be true or false. So now replace the 5 is odd and the 5 is even with the corresponding Boolean. So 5 is odd, true, or false. So how do you take the results of an OR operator, which it's called a binary operator because binary means two, so it has two aspects of it. You've got something just before it and something just after it. It infixes itself in between those two true values or false values. So now we have this proposition. We have two propositions, and each of those has a corresponding boolean output. Now we have another function, the OR function. What is the output there? Is it truth or false? So that's a question I'm going to leave with, is if you have an OR statement, what are the possible outcomes that it can be, given that you can have a truth value and a truth value. You can basically, it says that each of those inputs in the OR statement, the first, you got A or B. A can be two values, it can be true or false, and B can be two values, it can be true or false. So now it's like, okay, well, how do we even consider figuring out what and the OR statement is a simple one, but it increases in complexity the more statements you have, the more values you're trying to consider. But starting with something simple, a proposition can have two values, so true or false. It takes one value in, and it outputs a single value. So whatever X is, it can be true or false. An OR statement takes two propositions. How many different combinations of two propositions can you have? Remembering that a proposition can have two values. Once you find out how many different outputs two propositions can have, then you can consider each different combination. From each different combination, what are the true false values that you'll get? So to remember, a proposition is a function that will, and I'm calling it a function, I'm defining it as a function that takes a statement and it gives you the corresponding truth or false value. Assuming that we're not proving truth or false, we're just saying that it will be true or it will be false. An OR statement is another function that takes two propositions and gives you an output of true or false. So what are the different outcomes two propositions can have if it is an OR statement? So I'm going to leave it with that, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. That's just the very basics of of logic as you use it in mathematics. If you look at logic as it pertains to philosophy, you get a much wider range of topics. Syllogism. Is that the way you say it? Syllogism? It's another form of a logical statement, and you can obviously look some of that stuff up there. But I'll leave it there, and tomorrow we'll talk about the results. Okay, thank you so much. Have a great day.